Hello, everyone.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, and this is The Adventures of Kayla and Silas, a podcast about everything travel. Each week, we cover travel topics that we find interesting and that we hope you will too. In today's episode, we'll be discussing more about Mayan ruins, the vibrant city of San Cristobal de las Casas, drugs, hippies, horseback riding, and ending our tour of Mexico.
Sad. I really liked Mexico.
It was fun. We didn't get to see all of Mexico, but no one ever really gets to see all of anywhere.
Right. But I think we got to see a lot, and we got to eat a lot of tacos, which was the most important part.
Yes, absolutely. Tacos always and always and always will be the most important part. I do want to take a quick side trip from our organized tour of talking points today to just talk about that idea for a second, though, because I have been talking about this with a lot of people as we've been traveling and bumping into people at hostels, etc., on bus rides and things, that especially other travelers who are trying to see lots of places and they're like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to see this place or if I want to see that place or where I should go next. And time is always the biggest barrier, really. I mean, money is a barrier, but time is really a much larger barrier to being able to see everything that you want to.
I'm just now catching up with where you're going with this thought.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much. But I don't know. For me, it is, I can either have that mindset that I'm going to have an adventure tomorrow, or I can have the mindset of I'm going to miss something tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I try to live in the camp of let's have an adventure tomorrow. Let's go see something exciting. Even if that means sacrificing something else exciting, that's always the case. It doesn't matter what you're doing with your life. This is getting very meta and very...
well, but I think to bring it back down a little bit...
Yeah, bring us back down to earth, Kayla.
Happily. But you were saying just the other day, like, you know, I'm always constantly asking Silas, like, well, what do you want to do? Because I do end up planning probably more than Silas does.
You're just better at it.
Well, regardless of whether I'm better at it, I'm the one that tends to fall into the trap of doing research on different destinations and, oh, this looks fun and this doesn't. And I always worry that I'm leaving Silas's opinion out. So I'm constantly asking him, and he always says, Kayla, whatever we do is going to be fun. Like, I'm just up for the adventure.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a refreshing take on the whole concept of travel, just because people do, like, we are constantly running into people on the road who are kind of fly by the seat of their pants people who are, well, we don't know where we're staying tonight, or we're not sure where we're going tomorrow, but we don't have another night booked here. And it surprises me a little because we are more the type of travelers that's like, okay, let's do enough research to kind of have an idea of how long we want to be in a place.
Yeah.
And then if we end up booking a place for a little longer than we want to be there, okay, well, we might go do some extra work at a coffee shop or
revisit a restaurant that we really liked.
Yeah, like chill at places that we've enjoyed, like go take in the view from a place that we've already been. Like, that's fine with us. I think other people are maybe more so than us, are ready to make kind of a gut reaction to a place like the first day.
Yep.
And we met this guy the other day, and he said to me something that I'm seriously never going to forget. He said, you can never judge a city when you're traveling by the day that you arrive, because it's always a travel day. So you're always tired, maybe frustrated, maybe things didn't go according to plan. And so when you get into a city for the very first time, you cannot judge it based on that day. You have to go to sleep, get some rest, and then wake up the next morning ready to decide whether or not you like a place, so to speak.
Yep.
And I thought that was really, really fun, because it's like, yeah, man, we are tired when we get in off of a 12-hour bus ride or a 30-hour plane transfer or whatever. Like, yeah, nothing looks good at 9 o'clock at night when you're carrying your big, heavy backpack and you're exhausted and you haven't eaten in hours. Nothing's fun. Like, so yeah, of course you shouldn't judge a city based upon being hungry and tired. Right. And I thought that was really interesting. I think that it's all related though. Like this idea of, man, what am I missing out on? Or am I doing the right things? Like, well, whatever you're doing is the right thing. I think is kind of your philosophy. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are things that you can say, I wish I had the opportunity to see that or do that. But if you go into your vacation or even leave your vacation with that idea, you don't get to enjoy the things that you're actually doing there. I mean, that's why I definitely agree that planning ahead is important, so that things that that appear to be more important to you in advance are things that you try to go see. But, don't beat yourself up if you can't see everything, because no one can. It's impossible. Even if you have the most extreme FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out, for my grandma if she's listening, if you have FOMO, you have to work on getting over that and just really be excited about the things you get to see.
Right. And I think for us, we're trying to keep to a budget. And so planning ahead has some advantages. And so while it might be cool
namely the apartment that we're in right now.
Yeah.
This place is awesome. Airbnb, what was it, $30 a night or something like that?
Yeah, we're in an apartment that's not all that different from the apartment we left behind in the US.
Except this one is...
It's actually cheaper, even if you did it monthly.
Even if you did it monthly. And it has a pool and hot tub out in the courtyard.
Yeah, like a clubhouse.
It's pretty lush.
It's pretty fancy pants. No, but if we hadn't known we were going to stay in Antigua for a full week, we probably wouldn't have looked for Airbnbs, because we generally don't want to do the cleaning fee and kind of move into an apartment and buy groceries unless we're going to be in a place for a little bit.
Yep.
And this has been awesome, and it's only our second day, so I had a good impression on my travel day even
on the travel day. This place is awesome.
Yeah.
So, long story short, plan ahead, but don't feel upset if you didn't get to see something. Just get excited about the next trip you'll get to plan to that area.
Or even just don't be upset if your plans change.
I do know.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our regularly scheduled topics for today. Palenque.
Yes.
This was a stop. Actually, as we're recording this, it was a couple of weeks ago. A week and a half ago.
Well, so we were already in Mérida.
Yes.
And we knew we were going to San Cristobal de las Casas. And Palenque is not quite halfway, but it does break up the 12-hour bus ride.
Considerably.
And it was also on my list of places that I thought would be fun to visit. So we had some travel points on our credit card, and we're like, well, let's just stay at a hotel there for a couple of days. We'll get to see the ruins. There's a huge Mayan archaeological site there, and we'll get to see that on our day in the middle. And then we can keep busing down to San Cristobal, because I think otherwise we would have had a very long travel day, and that wouldn't have been as much fun. And we also would have missed out on Palenque, because it's just enough off the beaten path that it's
enough off the beaten path, and it's a long enough tour that there aren't really bus trips, I imagine, out there between Mérida and San Cristobal de las Casas that is going to stop and say, all right, go explore Palenque for a bit.
There actually is a tour from San Cristobal to Palenque.
Oh my gosh.
But it leaves at 3 a.m. and gets back at 11 p.m.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay, well, you could do that. And there's no way they had as much time at the ruins as we had, because we didn't have an agenda.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm with Silas on that one. That sounds miserable. And we were going past Palenque on our way to San Cristobal anyway, so it didn't make any sense not to just stop and stay there for a couple of nights. So it was amazing. The ruins are set in the jungle. It's a very, very different feel than the Yucatan Peninsula, because Palenque is in the state of Chiapas in the mountains. And it's just an incredibly kind of Indiana Jones sort of place, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, either Temple of Doom or probably more closely related to the Crystal Skulls. Crystal Skull? Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Yeah, something like that. We'll fact check that later.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was our 5th or 6th Mayan ruin, so we've been to a few now.
We've been to a few.
But the interesting thing about the ruins at Palenque that no other site had was that it had a museum, which is pretty cool.
It was cool, yeah. And they had what I believe was a replica of a tomb.
Yeah, of one of the major rulers from the 7th century, I believe, that they found inside of one of the temples at the site. So,
or it was the real thing that they had pulled out.
I don't think it's possible that they got it out.
I don't know how they would have gotten it out.
I don't know. We couldn't go in the temple.
And I don't know how they got it in. It's
I think they built it inside of the temple.
Well, maybe like a ship in a bottle.
Is that how ships and bottles work?
So it was a really cool day as we walked around and explored the ruins. And I really did like the jungle feel, because there were different spots where you actually just went into the jungle And then you found this other building or other structure, and it was just cool to explore. When I was a kid, we lived in Omaha, Nebraska for a while. And in Omaha, there's the Omaha Henry Doorly Zoo. And when I was 7, 8 years old, they built the Lead Jungle, which, another aside on top of a side, Mr. Lead owned a lot of land in Las Vegas, and his assistant ended up taking over his estate and created a scholarship for the university I went to. And so I got to know her fairly well from the many visits she had to campus. And she was also the one who gave money for the Lead Jungle, which I went to as a kid all the time. So really, this lady, Christina Hickson, had a lot of impact on my life without even knowing it for several years.
You also were a recipient of the scholarship.
I was also a recipient of the scholarship. Yes. Sorry. Yes. I received the scholarship. I got to go to the zoo,
explore
lots
the
of
jungle in Nebraska.
Explore the jungle in Nebraska.
Wow.
Anyway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew about the scholarship. I didn't know about the jungle.
Oh, okay. So the jungle, when I was a kid, I was like, this can't be what a jungle's like. And actually, for a man-made jungle, it is fairly accurate. And aside from, the obvious man-made structures around, but it does give you a nice taste. And when I got into the jungle, I was like, this smells right. So they had the right vegetation growing in the Henry Doorly Zoo. I was like, this just smells.
What you mean when you got to Palenque, you were like, yes, this smells like the zoo from when I was a kid.
This smells like zoo from when I was a kid. I was like, no way. I thought they had something funky going on in there. Nope. It was just jungle smell.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Palenque is pretty cool because a lot of it's unexcavated and also not restored yet. So
little restoration happening.
Some of the big buildings definitely are restored, but it's so big that lots of it hasn't been restored and it's kind of off the beaten path and still overgrown. And if you go to the main entrance and you go to the big stuff, then you can take this other path out towards the museum, which is further kind of down this hill. And along the way, you get to see like this waterfall and just walk down this really cool path. Is like
the waterfall was pretty awesome.
The waterfall is awesome. And along the way, you get to see the ruins of what would have been more like just living quarters and stuff.
Which you don't get to see a lot at the other sites.
Right. Because people spend a lot of money and time restoring the big temples and stuff, and they don't necessarily pay attention to kind of the smaller structures.
Yeah. And
a lot of the housing from the Mayans, it doesn't exist anymore because they didn't build out of stone the housing unless you were really important. So all that really remains are things like temples and observatories and palaces and stuff like that.
Yep.
But Palenque is kind of cool in that it just goes on forever.
Well, one thing that historically that I caught from guides and things as we were reading things, etc., was that a lot of the other sites, especially up in Yucatan, food shortages and water shortages was something that happened regularly. And at this site, they had so much, they had 3 seasons that they could grow food. Like they were never running out of food. Food was not an issue that they seemed to deal with a lot there.
Yeah, I think the big difference is that Yucatan has very little water. There's 0 rivers on the northern half of the peninsula, I read. So the Mayans were really dependent on the underground water system, getting water from cenotes and underground rivers. And when that water wasn't abundant, they really suffered. And the plants they were trying to grow for food suffered, obviously. And the animals they hunted suffered.
Oh, and the rain god that they prayed to.
Chuck.
I didn't see Chuck pop up a lot.
At Palenque?
At Palenque.
I don't remember Chuck being at Palenque, but...
He has a nose that's usually turned up to catch water, or sometimes it's
ask for water.
Ask for water.
Yeah, Chuck kind of has an elephant sort of feel to his face.
Yeah, and sometimes his nose is turned down for some other reason. I don't know a lot about Chuck, but I do know that I don't recall seeing Chuck at Palenque,
So then we went to San Cristobal.
We did. It was a lot of fun because at Palenque, we explored the ruins and we hung out in town and grabbed a couple of meals, and we had met some people in Tulum, and we're like, oh, I wonder if we'll run into them again. And we bumped into them on the street in Palenque. And we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And he's like, hey. And then he said, oh, we're going to stay at this hostel in San Cristobal. And we said, we are too.
Yep.
And then when we showed up, he was at the front desk and while we were checking in. So
yeah, like literally walked straight into him when we went to check into our room, which was great because it's very true. Like we're learning only 5 weeks into our trip that you keep running into the same people.
Yep.
Because a lot of people are on similar paths. And as you go, you just keep kind of having these interactions and meeting new people. And then they meet new people and you get introduced to their new friends as you
Unite?
Reunite. Yes, that was the word I was going for. When you reunite, you get to meet their new friends and so on and so forth. And it just continues.
So
it's really
after we met them at the front desk, they said, oh, we're going out to this bar tonight because we learned about it on this walking tour. And so we went out to the bar with them, and it was it was called Revolucion, and it had live music, and it was a fun night.
And they made us try Posh, which is the local kind of schnapps, I guess. What do you call it, schnapps?
I would call it an alcohol.
It was very potent. But they made us try the chocolate Posh, which was disgusting.
I liked it. We hung out with them and we said, oh, well, this walking tour sounds great. We should check it out. And so we went and did that the next day or 2 days later. Either way, we went and did it as soon as was available for us to do with our schedule.
Yes, we went on the walking tour.
And it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot of interesting things about San Cristobal de las Casas. It was not a typical walking tour, though, I would say. It took about 5 hours.
Yeah, we tried a lot of different kind of specialties. Like we went to different places and they'd like, here, try Chiapas coffee. And we tried Posh again. Silas tried grasshoppers, I think.
Crickets, something.
Or crickets. I don't remember.
I got to eat a bug.
We went to an organic market where we could buy food. And then kind of interwoven in all of that was a lot of street art.
Street art. One of the things it said was... One of the street art pieces that was highlighted for us, there were several odd choices. He would point out things and say, look at this and look at that, and this is important. And a lot of it just looked like graffiti, and other pieces looked like amazing pieces of art. And one thing he pointed out was, see this over here? It's scribbled on the wall, and it says something to the effect of, get out of town, you hippies, and take a shower, or something like that. And he's like, but no, this is just a joke. I know this guy, and he was just joking around. He likes the hippies and the hipsters, and he likes everyone. It was just a joke. And I was like, why are you pointing this out? And why hasn't someone scrubbed that off the wall?
Well, what he said was it had been repeated all over town. It's written all over town now, like as a joke to tell the hippies to get out of town. Because San Cristobal, if nothing else, is full of hippies. Be them Mexican hippies or expat hippies or traveling hippies.
The city had such an interesting vibe going on.
It's like every corner there's a vegan restaurant.
Yep.
And everyone's selling those little like bracelets. I don't know what those are called. Those little like woven...
Friendship bracelets? Something.
Well, I don't know. And yeah, it just has this... With all the street art and all of the vegan food and all of that combined, it just has this very hippie feel to me.
There was so much live music and so many different types of things happening.
And lots of different types of people because I think he said there were like 7 or 9 different kind of ethnic groups, Mexican ethnic groups in Chiapas that all lived within San Cristobal in the vicinity. And then on top of that, you obviously have kind of an expat community and a traveler community. And so there's just kind of something for everyone in San Cristobal, I would say.
Definitely, I would agree with that.
The other thing that really surprised me about San Cristobal, like just first impression, was all of a sudden Mexico was not 80 degrees and hot and sunny every single day.
Right. No, I had worn shorts and a t-shirt and sandals every single day up to this point. And when we got off the bus, I was in shorts and t-shirts and sandals. And I got off the bus and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to put my jacket on at the very least. And I don't say that very often.
Yeah. And what we learned was because we're in the mountains there, it was like, it could be very hot in the daytime if you're in sun.
Yes.
But at like 5 o'clock would hit and the sun would go down and it would be super chilly all of a sudden. So it was kind of nice actually because we had many, many, many weeks of just very hot weather.
Right. And all of our friends back home who are suffering through blizzards and things, I'm sure are very excited to hear this. But, either way, they recognize what summer is like, and sweating and walking around cities every day is not always the most fun. And especially Kayla's sunburn on top of sunburn on top of sunburn.
Yeah, I think I've lost like 7 layers of skin on this trip.
Gross.
Yeah, it's really gross.
The other thing that I was surprised, though, that we didn't see, well, the only thing I guess that I was surprised that we didn't really explore on the walking tour were the 2 churches. Because those walking, kind of
I guess,
bookend the city, not really bookend the city, but are kind of the 2 main focal points of the city. As you stand different places, you can see these 2 churches across town from each other.
Because, well,
there are more churches, but they're the 2 up on these hills, right?
Right. And San Cristobal's in a big valley. There's just mountains all the way around, and it's basically a bowl shape. And so if you can imagine,
or a valley
to the east or to the west, up the hillside are these 2 churches, and they both have really cool views of town.
Yep.
And
we hiked up both of them.
Yeah, we did. I was trying to think of something more positive to say. I was just thinking about how tired I was when I got to both churches.
The churches were both beautiful. They were both really cool.
Yeah, of course.
I would say the first one that we hiked up was much higher up, and it took, I don't know, probably a good 10, 15 minutes to get up to the top. It felt like it took forever. But it was worth it because you could see so much of the city. The other church, though, didn't take as long to get up, much easier climb. But they had planted these trees along the path up to the church.
Both churches, really.
Both churches, really. Yep.
Yeah.
But once
so there's imagine a staircase that's maybe 20 feet wide.
Yeah.
Or probably wider, 30, 40 feet wide. But there's trees up both sides of both staircases. So when you get to the top, the view is
obstructed.
Yeah. Which is sad. But halfway up the staircase were great views of the city.
And probably the best view of the city, which we didn't believe the guy during the walking tour when he said this, but he took us to this place, which was kind of an art house.
I never caught the name of the place that we went to, so you'll have to go do the free walking tour in San Cristobal if you want to know what the heck we're talking about.
Yes.
But it was he talked to us about peyote, which is
he says this is a place where a lot of cool art happens. And then we get inside and he's like, let me tell you about the peyote plant and the number of times that I've done peyote and how you aren't supposed to take peyote, the first peyote.
You have to meet it before you can.
Well, you have to meet the first one. You have to thank it for meeting you. And then the next one you can smoke or chew or
You don't know how to do peyote, do you?
I'm not.
I don't either.
I don't either. Yeah, no, I'm not a.
Well, anyway, so we talked about peyote, and then we walked around a little bit. I thought it was a house from the outside, but once you got up inside, it was every room had different art pieces, and it was all the same artist. And I don't know if we ever met him or not because it was all very unclear what was happening. And then if you go up another staircase, there's this kind of rooftop bar.
Yep.
Attached to the drug/art place.
Because he kept saying, "Oh, the artist did medicine." He kept calling it medicine rather than drugs. And,
yes, he did use those words interchangeably.
And he took medicine and then he made these paintings and he made this painting and then these are the things that he saw while he was taking acid and these are the things that he saw while he was eating mushrooms and this was the thing that he saw after his peyote journey. And then we went upstairs and he's like, "You can have a beer while we look out over the city." And it was a beautiful view. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to want to come back here. We'll get a better view. We'll get a good view from somewhere else. And we kind of walked around the city and did these 2 hikes where we're like, we'll get up really high and go to these churches.
Yeah.
And then we're like, no, we should go back to that drug art house. And
we did.
And we did.
It was awesome.
It was nice. I will say that anyone who's thinking about going on the walking tour and is concerned because you don't do drugs or are concerned about it, it was the least uncomfortable place that we've been so far. It was super chill.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only complaint about that tour, and it's not my complaint, but some people might be annoyed that it's 5 or 6 hours long.
Right, yeah.
And maybe it's not that way with every tour guide. I think it's kind of luck of the draw which tour guide you get. And so perhaps ours did something a little bit differently than what others would have done. I don't know for sure, but I highly recommend the free walking tour.
Definitely.
Even for the fact that you get a lot of recommendations for other things to do and
a lot
places
of
to
free
go
food.
to. Ooh, the other thing I recommend in San Cristobal, before we talk about a couple of other things that we did, was the wine bar. I think it's called like Vino del Boca. It doesn't matter. Right in the middle of Real de Guadalupe, which is the main street off of the square, there is this wine bar, and the wine is as little as like 30 pesos, which is like maybe $1.75 for a glass of wine. But you get free tapas as well. So it's like popcorn and like...
If you really want to milk it, you could go get a glass of wine and essentially a small free dinner.
So popcorn is like always there. And then in addition, for each glass of wine you bought, you got like basically a bruschetta. Like, bread with toppings and stuff. Highly recommend the wine bar. We went there probably 4 nights.
No, we went there every single day.
At least 5 nights.
There you go. It was a really cool place to go.
Yeah, it was.
So I will say that do the walking tour. The drug art house, not creepy or weird. The art was really cool.
Well, it is kind of weird, but not like in a creepy way.
Not in a creepy way, not in an uncomfortable way, just an interesting way. And then I would say that you should also do some day trips, which we did a couple of. The first that I would say you should definitely do is the Grand Canyon of Mexico. Kayla?
Well, I don't think other people call it that. I think you just called it that.
It is the Grand Canyon of Mexico, according to Silas from The Adventures of Kayla and Silas.
Really close to San Cristobal.
Therefore, fact.
Really close to San Cristobal is Sumidero Canyon. And it's actually quite cheap to just book it as a tour from San Cristobal. So like we got picked up at our hostel.
Well, our hostel was connected with being able to book that too. So something to look at if you're staying in a hostel.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter where you're staying. You can just talk to the person at the front desk and they'll book you a trip to Sumidero Canyon. And
what if you're staying at like a homestay?
Then just go to the nearest hostel or hotel and they'll book it for you. That's what I'm saying.
But what if I just want to make sure that people know where to book it, Kayla.
Everywhere in town will book this freaking trip.
At even the wine bar that we went to?
Yes, the wine bar knows how to book the trip.
Okay, people, anyway. I don't think that this is accurate information. You'll have to fact check us later.
Anyway, you should go. It's beautiful. So for like $15 we got transfer from our hostel to the river. There's a river that goes through the canyon. So what you do is you go to the river and then you get in a boat and you do a boat tour all the way through it's a national park in Mexico. So you go all the way through like 22 kilometers through the whole park and back. And so along the way, we got to see some wildlife. Obviously, we got to see the canyon.
Alligators. Alligators, yes. Alligators, monkeys, patos.
Lots of birds and ducks and all sorts of things. And it was beautiful. It was sunny. We're in this boat cruising along the river and you have these ginormous kind of cliffs up either side of the river. And it was a lot of fun. And then afterwards, the bus driver also took us to Corzo, I think is the name of the village that's right there. I
was kind of feeling a little heat sick, so I'm not sure where we were, but we did get tacos there. So
yeah, we only had like an hour in town, but it was fun because you just get to see, since we're already out of town, you get to see one other little part of Mexico and Chiapas. And so we grabbed some local tacos. Still not sure what we ate exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was pulled pork.
You think it was pork?
It was meat.
It was not clear to me what it was from the menu that we tried to translate.
It was ribs.
But it's all good.
It was rib meat.
Yes, it was rib meat, but I'm not sure from which animal.
Ribs.
Anyway.
It tasted like
pork. And then they drive you back into city center of San Cristobal. So for $15, you get basically a whole day. And I can't recommend it enough because it was really worthwhile. I will say the one downfall was our boat tour guide did not speak any English. And so
he might have spoken English, but he chose not to during the
that's
tour.
What I'm saying. He did not speak in English during the tour. So we were catching not quite all of the facts about the canyon, but we did our best.
But after seeing it, I would be able to go look up things about it.
Yeah, well, and it was just beautiful. Like, regardless of the language barrier, anything else, like a lot of the stuff he was saying were things like, this is how tall the canyon is right here, which is not a reference point for me.
Right. Kayla wants to know who lived there, what they had for dinner, and what type of dance they would do on wedding days. The other day trip that I would recommend doing is to the church outside of San Cristobal de las Casas in
San Juan de Chamula.
It was a very fascinating religious experience that I had not had before.
I don't think anyone, unless you're from there,
has had that experience.
No, right, exactly.
I would, however, recommend getting there by any other means of transportation besides horses, especially if you've never ridden horses before. Kayla and I looked at an option to get there via horseback ride. And I said, yeah, I've never ridden horses. That sounds cool. Let's go check it out. I think my butt is still sore, and this happened a week and a half ago.
I literally rubbed my back raw. Like, you know, the part like in the middle of your jeans where there's all the stitching to hold on to the belt loop? I
do.
I think it rubbed
your skin
through my skin. Yeah.
It was not a comfortable riding experience. It was interesting though. I'd never ridden a horse before, and the instructions I was given was nothing. Get on the horse and it will go. I know that, especially for tours like this, the horse basically knows where to go. But my horse hated me. My horse did not like either how much I weighed or what I looked like. Something about me really pissed this horse off because I'd be like, let's go. And the horse would stop and turn its head and look at me and just kind of shake his head and snort a little bit and then look back forward until the guide would come up behind my horse, smack it on the butt, and then it would take off again. This happened a half dozen times each way there and back.
Silas didn't have the best horse riding experience. The horse riding wasn't necessarily the problem for me, aside from this little patch of skin on my back, my lower back, which will never forgive me. But
never.
I was a little sad though, because I assumed since we were booking horseback to Chamula that there was like a little path through the woods that we would take.
Oh yeah.
And most of the route was this relatively steep paved road where there were other vehicles and things.
And my horse kept slipping. I don't know if it needed new shoes or if it had...
Or if they were tired.
Or if they were tired or what, but...
My horse did the same thing. So it would like lose its footing. Lose its footing and then catch itself, which is terrifying when you're riding a horse and not a good horse rider. But anyway... Besides that, I'm just saying, like, it's not like the most amazing route to get to.
Right.
Like you could just take a car and have the same exact views.
Yes, you could.
Which I wasn't expecting. But the church is why we're here. So there is an ethnic group. I believe it's like a subset of Mayan, the larger Mayan people who live in this village. And they have basically taken a lot of the tenets of Christianity and interwoven them with their own Mayan religion. And the outcome is this church, which you can take no pictures in. So we have no visual evidence of what we saw there, but we can just kind of relay what...
We can paint a picture with words.
We can try to paint a picture. So you walk in and the first thing you think is it's very smoky, like the air is very dense. And you look around and there's tables lining every wall. And on all of the tables are candles, like thousands of candles around all three sides of the church. And if you look even closer, behind the tables, like actually against the walls, are like what I would call a china cabinet with glass fronts. Inside of each of them is a doll of a saint of the Catholic religion. But they were inside cabinets. Which was weird.
Some of them were more doll-like, some of them were more mini statue-like. It depended. I think some of the building material, not all the dolls were made the same way.
Sure. They were different.
They were different, and they had lots of saints. It wasn't just your
It was not
popular,
your run-of-the-mill Catholic saint on display. And in fact, I was expecting when you got to the very front of the church, that would be something a little more prominent, like one of the cabinets would be bigger with Jesus or Virgin Mary or something like that, which is not the case because you get to the front of the church and it's just more of the same. But this is like, that was like the normal part. That's just like, that was just like what was in the church. But what was happening is even more interesting, yeah.
Yes. There were lots of family groups, and they were, I don't know, the whole building was probably 50 to 100 meters long. I don't know.
It was bigger than I thought.
Really long.
I was imagining it to be quite small.
And you got inside, and there were lots and lots of groups of families on the floor. There were long pine needles, not pine needles. Pine needles. They were long. They weren't your Christmas tree style pine needles.
They weren't Christmas tree pine needles.
No, they were these long pine needles that cover the floor. And so the whole floor was green except for the bare spots on that had the tile floor showing, with families sitting around and praying, and they were lighting candles and saying prayers, and there were so many candles that they had lit. So not only were there the thousands of candles around the entire room lighting the room, but also the candles that the families were lighting, and they were these long skinny candles that they would light one, and then they would use that fire to melt the bottom of another candle, just stick to the floor. So they were sticking all these candles to the tile floor, lighting these candles and saying prayers. And I don't know, there were probably 30 groups, 20 to 30 groups.
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, like I would say 10 to 20 different spots where they'd cleared the needles to do prayers. And some people were by themselves doing the candles and the prayers. Some people had with them eggs and or chickens as sacrifices.
We did not witness a sacrifice.
We did not witness a sacrifice, but we saw that people had brought these things with them. And we also saw
soda. Yep.
Yeah, so apparently, and we've heard now variations of this from different people, but apparently this specific group of Mayans will drink soda and then belch as a way to get rid of kind of the bad stuff in their bodies, like the bad vibes or whatever, like bad spirits or bad intentions or whatever. So we didn't notice any belching or whatever, but there were a lot of people who had sodas in front of them.
Yes, we didn't notice belching. I think both of us felt that we were somehow being intrusive. We're like, well, we paid to get in to check this out, but we also don't want to just
gawk.
Stand around and gawk. So we saw it. We can get out. We made all of our mental notes, but definitely an interesting experience. Definitely something you should go see if you are in San Cristobal de las Casas. And
just take the bus.
Just take the bus. Just take a bus or a
taxi.
Something besides horses. So
you can walk there.
You could walk there. Yes. As fast as my horse was going, it probably would have taken just as long to walk there. What I will say is, before we wrap up today's show, I would like to know, Kayla, 2 things from you. 1, why should people visit
San Cristobal?
Yes. And you can also include Palenque in this if you would like to.
Okay.
And
Chiapas.
2, Chiapas, let's say that. And 2, what was your favorite part or parts, if you can't pick?
Okay, so you should visit San Cristobal because of the melding of cultures that happens there. I think there are lots of different people. There are lots of different local people, and then also lots of foreigners there, and it just makes for a really interesting, unique vibe. Mm-hmm. And then I have 2 favorite parts. The first favorite part I already told you about, and it was the wine bar.
Yes.
And my second favorite part is, I think it's the Church of Guadalupe. So the church on the east side of town. One of the nights we went up there like right at sunset, and we just sat, and you can't quite see sunset because of the trees, but we just sat on the stairs and overlooked town and chilled. And that's one of my more memorable moments is just sitting up there, hanging out and watching town. And there's mass happening behind us inside the church. So there was music and bells were ringing and everything was going on, and the neighborhood was quite alive. And so that was my other favorite part. How about you?
I think people should visit for the weather. It was, I don't know if it is like this year round, I imagine it does tend to get a little bit hotter, probably closer to July. But I still feel that because of the elevation, it's a fairly mild climate for the most part. And definitely for the sights that you can see. The mountains are beautiful. Going to Chiapas and seeing Palenque, the jungle was beautiful, and the canyon we were in was beautiful. Just so cool. The scenery is very, very different than any of the places that we've been so far, or any place that I've been in the past. So visit for those things. And my favorite part, I would also say, the wine bar. That place was awesome.
We need to put a rave review on TripAdvisor.
We should go put a rave review on TripAdvisor. But I would also say my other favorite part was this restaurant that we went to in kind of the fancy place in town.
Oh, yes.
This place was super, super, super cool and very expensive. Kayla and I shared a meal. It was nice. I would say go there if you feel like you have money, but that in and of itself wasn't my favorite part. My favorite part was that the day we went on the walking tour, there were lots of people in our group, and we kind of had side conversations with most of them. And at night, we were sitting there having dinner, just the two of us, and this couple walks in, and we're like, oh my gosh, is that couple from the walking tour? And we look at it and we wave and like, oh my gosh, hey, how's it going? And the guy walks over and to say hi, and he steps into this little...
It cannot be described as anything other than like this very small indoor river.
That was
for no reason.
For decoration purposes only, but it was about 6 inches deep, just deep enough to completely soak his shoe as he steps into this thing. And everyone is looking at him, and it's very, very public. And, you know, I would have felt bad for him, but he just goes, oh man, my shoe's wet. And he gets back up and he takes his shoe off and pours water out of it and wrings his sock out. And he's just laughing
he's
about
like
it.
unfazed. They were like on month 5 of traveling though.
Completely unfazed by the whole thing. It was just the most incredible.
It was very funny.
It was just awesome. It was a good comic relief moment at that point in time. And I liked it. But that's our show. As always, we ask that you reach out with any questions you might have. We are always available via comments, social media, or email. We've also launched a Patreon community. If you follow the link below to our Patreon page, you can get exclusive access to our content and our vacation planning assistance. Once again,
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, wishing you luck with your upcoming adventures.